Yes, ladies and gents, welcome. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the very first Dyl.A.D Speaks, which is my live YouTube broadcast brought to you from my home studio for now. Here we are, guys. It is my pleasure to be here doing this for you. Subjects of discussion today, as per the thumbnail and the heading that I included at the beginning of the video, before you clicked on it to begin viewing. We're talking about Ryan Garcia. We're talking about Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Alright, that's what's going on in combat sports. A lot of you do not know who I am. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is what I'm here to do, okay? I am a combat sport athlete myself. I actually have my very first medal hanging from my desk right here to back up the claim. AIBA amateur boxer. Terrible record. Terrible run in the AMs. But I am a boxer nonetheless, and I do hope to come back and clean up that legacy. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about me, but that just helps you understand how I would understand what's going on in combat sports and actually give some sort of a valid opinion on it. Now, first thing I want to talk about, obviously, is the Ryan Garcia situation. Now, we call it a situation just because no one's really sure where it's at. We don't even really know if it's... Well, I mean... Let's look at it this way, folks. Okay, number one, alright? Number one, we have to consider that Ryan has been boxing since the tender, young age of 7 years old. Okay? That being said, there is something called chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Encephalopathy. Basically, it's a progressive brain disease, or disorder, rather, causing death in the nerve cells of the brain, otherwise known as degeneration. So it's just a degenerative brain disease that happens in football, combat sports, any high contact brain trauma inducing activities. Okay, so if you're boxing since 7 years old and your brain is not fully even developed yet, it is probable that you're going to have some trouble with this in the future. That's number one. Okay, number two. I've shared words with Ryan online prior to his meteoric rise to the focus of everybody's attention. Okay, those were the days where he's fighting names like Fortuna, or like the I'd be hard pressed to name more than a couple, because they're like journeymen. They're not even gatekeepers, right? So back then he seemed a lot more level. He didn't really have any issues with being over the top or oversharing or anything like that, really. The dude seemed okay. Since then, he maybe took a few tests in the ring, and it's obvious that with his involvement with the higher strata of the business, that he has more than likely come into contact with the hedonistic pleasures that exist at that level. Now, no doubt he has come across a few characters of questionable virtue, and those particular characters probably brought him into contact with things that he wasn't ready to see. Granted, at that level, and that kind of lifestyle, the people that exist in those realms of being generally use and abuse substances. So he's been seen on live in recent history polishing off a bottle of wine and exclaiming how proud he is that he did it all himself. And then the very next day saying that if he drinks very little. Those two things, they do not align, my friend. So your inconsistency is showing us that there is some instability there. That's obviously problematic for someone that's trying to convince the world that they're not unstable or using substances inappropriately or in excess, right? That's problematic, my dude. So outside of that, I gotta move along with the point here. Okay, so essentially the dude is trying to convince everybody that he's not unstable, he's not using drugs, etc., etc. But then he's erratic in his behavior. His voice is hoarse during interviews and press conferences and stuff to promote the fight. Things like that coming up, and then it's like he's trying to rub it in our face because he's wearing an all-white suit, standing behind or in front of Oscar De La Hoya, who is known for abusing drugs, who is also wearing an all-white suit, and then he shows up at a press conference riding a white horse. Now, I forget the rapper's name, but I believe it said something like this in one of their songs: you can ride the white horse all the way to Hollywood. If he's not trying to rub it in our face, I don't know what he's doing. But anyway, what have we talked about so far? We've talked about CTE and the fact that he's boxed since he's 7. We talked about how he's entered the higher strata of lifestyle and associates. And now we talked about the fact that he's more than likely abusing substances. Now let's dive more into his claims about seeing some effed up stuff. Now, it's highly likely that if he's hanging around the people who are doing all this effed up stuff, that he's going to come into contact with it. Now, normal people, or I shouldn't say normal, but people who haven't suffered thousands of blows to the head and are now abusing drugs and alcohol, might be able to process seeing some of that kind of thing, or some of those kind of things, and not fly off the handle and feel they need to scream it from the mountaintops. Or at least understand that if they do scream it from the mountaintops, that there's inherent risks and dangers. But I don't think his brain at this point in time is capable of putting together the severity, the magnitude of those dangers, of those implications, right? So there was two other people that spoke out sort of like he's doing. That was Michael Jackson and Kanye West. Now, Michael Jackson disappeared, and there was somebody put in his place, some ghoulish white freaking ghost looking creature. We all know that was not MJ. It wasn't MJ dangling kids over balconies. That was just to ruin his legacy and defame his character. A lot of people believe that the Kanye West around us now is not necessarily the same Kanye. That's up for a different debate. But right now, Ryan Garcia has placed himself in a position where he's so vocal constantly that if they got rid of him, people would notice, right? They would notice. So it's dangerous for them to make that play. But they have tried to reach him since, since that video we saw of him like reading a teleprompter type script. There is probably someone on the other side of the camera holding a gun, making him say that shit. And if you look at his eyes, it looks like he was sobbing and crying prior to the recording of that video. So somebody was very, very authoritatively ensuring that he came and made that address. But since he's regained control of his media outlets, he hasn't been able to help himself in continuing to pop off about this shit. And I think that's due to the fact that his traumatic brain experience in life, as well as the substances and alcohol that he's abusing, no doubt to cope with the knowledge that he now holds, is not allowing him to turn it off. He can't turn it off. And another reason I don't think he can turn it off is because he's getting so much acclaim and attention for constantly popping off about this kind of thing. And you'll notice I'm not even making specific mention of the claims, because that's not even really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the why it is he's doing what he is doing, and why he can't quit. Because if he's getting a constant dopaminergic response, and his serotonin levels are just getting popped off because the fact that he's getting all this attention constantly. So I don't think he can stop doing that because of the acclaim and the attention that it's bringing him. So that's my thought about Ryan Garcia. I do think that he has seen some fucked up shit. If not, something very traumatic has happened to him, and I won't go into the possibilities of what that could be. But let's just say he shared. Excuse me. Let's just say he shared a room with P. Diddy, or something like that. And you get the picture there. We saw how uncomfortable Justin Bieber was talking to P. Diddy, and he was close to Usher, and we know what those guys have been up to. So let's just say maybe Ryan got P. Diddy'd, and I think that's sort of why he shared the Haney and P. Diddy picture. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I won't speculate too deeply on that. Anyway, let's move along to, what are we at now for time? It's my first broadcast, so the longer I let it go, the more likely it is I fuck up and do something stupid or say something silly. So it looks like we're at 15 minutes. Alright, that's perfect. Time's running perfectly. we'll go Jake Paul and Mike for a bit now. So hopefully we can cut it at 30. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fighting on Who Gives a Fuck. I don't even remember. January 20th. Honestly, it comes down to this. Mike has been quoted in saying that he likes Jake Paul as a person and respects the progress that he's made as a boxer, right? In the past. And then in the fight build-up, he's been quoted in saying he's trying to put an end to the madness and stop Jake Paul from continuing his boxing career, etc., etc. He's coming to take his head off, blah, 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 blah. Now that, honestly, just selling the fight or trying, and perhaps this from a business standpoint, like it's a business move. It's not, it's entertainment, folks. You have to understand, it's entertainment sports. So if Mike Tyson can go to the WWE when it was not as relevant because boxing was taking away all the attention from that sport, that entertainment business, it's hard to call it a sport. But Mike Tyson went to the WWE cross-promotionally, bringing attention back to the WWE. Now, if Mike Tyson can enter this circus of influencer boxing and bring more attention to Jake Paul, like, he's bringing attention to Jake Paul's career by saying he's going to end it. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to say that Jake Paul has said, he's been on record saying that unless Mike hits me or tries to knock me out, he's not going to try to knock him out. Obviously, it's an old man who does that, right? Like, but Mike is making it sound like he's going to pursue the stoppage, right? So, that being said, I feel like because this is a business play and it's entertainment sports, they're basically turning boxing into a spectacle sport where it's like more than likely is scripted. And I say that with the confidence that almost everything that we see in the media, if we're seeing it on purpose. And we all know who owns the media. I'm not going to go too deeply in that, but basically you shouldn't rule out the possibility that it's going to be simply a scripted event. Mike might lose. It could go either way. Like, it's all I'm really saying here is that the event itself is a spectacle. It's a business move. They're both going to make a lot of money, and that's the point. Point blank, period. It's about the Benjamins. The whole kit and caboodle revolves around the dollar bill. That's it. That's it. There's nothing. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. Jake Paul isn't trying to elevate his legacy by fighting Mike Tyson, and Tyson isn't actually trying to end Jake Paul's career because he likes him as a person and respects his development in boxing, because Jake Paul actually has come a long way in boxing. Ryan Rozicki, the #1 ranked contender, about to get the cruiserweight title, absolute bulldozer in almost all his fights. Does he walk over Jake Paul? I'm not so sure, honestly speaking, because of the fact that Jake has millions and millions of dollars to train with the absolute best and have all kinds of great nutrition, and just like, he's got it all. Like, as far as like VADA testing goes, like, he can do as much as humanly possible without going into the realm of doping, right? So he's actually made progress as a fighter. He's obviously nothing spectacular, and someone like Ryan Rozicki most likely would knock him out easily, right? Simply stated, because there's nothing Jake Paul can hit a Ryan Rozicki with that Ryan Rozicki would give a fuck about. Just because Ryan Rozicki has already been hit by some of the hardest punches in boxing. So, Jake Paul is not knocking out a Ryan. So, he's just going to continue to grow a career off spectacle boxing and make a bunch of money, and when he thinks he's ready, he might start taking on actual contenders. But he already took on a half-assed contender who's not even really a contender at all. Put Tommy Fury in the ring with anybody who is anybody in boxing around his weight, and he's not doing anything, right? He's terrible. He's ass. So Jake Paul lost to that dude. So anyone who's anyone in boxing is probably going to KO Jake at his weight. So if this fight is what it's being sold to be, it's likely going to be that Tyson finishes him or stops him in a non-violent fashion, like meaning he doesn't spark him out cold, but he lands heavy punches and forces the fight to a stoppage, or they fight to a decision. It's just a dance. They might get in there and just dance to collect the check. That's what I think might most likely will happen. And then Mike Tyson will pay his respects to Jake Paul, thank him, yada yada yada. Jake Paul will honor Mike and say all kind of great things about him at the end, and that's what it'll be. A paycheck for both of them. It's a spectacle. It's a business decision. It's nothing more than that. It's not that deep. They're both making a fat paycheck, and that's that. Neither are going to actually try to knock each other out, because if Mike tries to do that to Jake, then Jake will use his youth and God-given advantages at this point in time to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the first Dyl.A.D Talks. Alright, now that I have a solid outro clip there, I'm just going to invite you guys to follow and subscribe to the channel. If you want to check me out on Twitter, it's Dyl.A.D. If you want to see me on TikTok, it's Dyl.A.D. That's the same as the Instagram, so Dyl.A.D. is Instagram and TikTok. I do have Twitter, not tweeting that much, probably will tweet more. I did mention what the handle was, Dyl.A.D, and you're now watching on the YouTube, so like and subscribe to the video. I'll plan to do a lot more of this type of content. Again, this is the first episode of a new series that is Dyl.A.D Speaks, not Talks. Sorry about that, that info blunder. Have yourself a wonderful day.
And these nights are getting shorter, like of energy I'll conquer. In my soul, this is real. These nights are getting shorter. In my soul.